Hello, it's Kayla with Live Oak Nest, and today I want to show you how to make this cute little pumpkin. So I love buffalo check. I painted a lot of buffalo check pumpkins last year. This year, if you follow me on social media, I kind of went with like a French blue color and mustardy color. So naturally, I wanted to make a pumpkin that kind of went with my stuff. So this pumpkin, I didn't even go buy. I had it in my stash. It was just an old styrofoam pumpkin that was white. So I pulled it out, painted it. Then I made this little leaf here out of paper clay. I took a real stem to replace the little one that was on there and then tied some ribbon on it. So anyway, I'm going to walk you through how I did this so that you can make your own. Okay, so to get started, we're going to use some Fusion Mineral Paint, and I'm using the color Raw Silk. So you can use any type of chalk paint or craft paint, anything that you have on hand. I'm using this because I have it and I like the color. So I'm going to get a really good base coat on here. You might have to do a few more depending on coverage. But once that dries, I'm going to go in with the color that I want to use for my buffalo check. I'm using this beautiful blue color. It's also a Fusion Mineral Paint paint. So I'm going in and I'm creating just vertical sections using my paintbrush. And this is just like a cheap craft paintbrush from the store. So it actually has a flat tip. So I feel like the tip allows me to get a really good straight line. So you could also use an angled brush, and I think that would work really well also. So the next thing you want to do is draw some horizontal lines all the way around your pumpkin so that we can kind of fill those in to make our checks. So you can see here I kind of had some overlapping lines. This doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to be painting over them. But definitely try to draw the lines on sort of straight so that your pumpkin looks kind of even by the time you're all finished. So once you get that done, you're just going to go in and paint all your little squares. And then I'm going to go back in and add in the lighter color. So to get the lighter color, I just mixed the two paints that I used together. So I mixed the blue with the raw silk to get a lighter blue color so that when you fill it in, you get the overlapping effect where it's darker in some sections and lighter in others. So I'm just going to go in with my paintbrush and get all of my little squares done. And this is really an easy project. It's just, you know, a little bit time consuming, but it's worth it because it looks so cute when it's finished. And a little tip, something that I've started doing is saving like any sort of little condiment container or anything you get like that from a restaurant. I've been saving those and just washing them out, and then I keep them to use to mix my paints in. And that way if I have some left over or if I'm in the middle of a project and I can't finish, then I can just put the lid on it and save it so it doesn't dry out. So I'm just working my way all the way around, filling in where it needs to be lighter for my buffalo check. And you can see this is not perfect, so don't stress too much if your lines aren't straight or it doesn't look exactly how you want it. Just keep going, and I think when you're finished, you'll be happy with it. So it looks like I've almost got this part finished up here. And I didn't really worry about the bottom, obviously, because you're not going to see that. And don't worry about getting paint on the pumpkin stem because we're going to end up replacing that anyway. So just use it to hold on to your pumpkin while you're working your way around. And I'm really just painting on little squares, so I think that's why this flat paintbrush works so good with the flat end, because it's easy to make straight lines and you can just kind of fill in a square easily with that. Alright, so it looks like I've just about got all of the paint done. So after it dries, the next thing I'm going to do is pull out this little stem here on the top. And this is just a styrofoam pumpkin, so you can just kind of turn and pull and it should pop right out. But I'm going to replace it with a real pumpkin stem. So I always save the stems off my pumpkins from the year before and then use them for little craft projects and things like that. So I'm going to put a dab of hot glue on the end of the stem, and then I'm going to give it just a couple of seconds to cool off, just so it doesn't melt the styrofoam when I place it back on top of the pumpkin. So then I decided I need to go in and touch up the few places that I messed up and got blue on the white. So I'm just going back in with my white paint, the raw silk, and touching up a few little small spots before I move on to embellishing the stem. So I decided that I want to use this ribbon. This is actually like, I think it's called hem binding. You can get it at the craft store, but this is a really thick piece of it. So I just kind of took my scissors and trimmed down the middle to make it a little bit more narrow so that the ribbon wasn't just so wide. So I just placed that in my hand to make my little bow, and then I took some thread and tied it around the middle and knotted it to kind of secure it so that it kind of bunched up in the center. And then I'm just going to go in here and kind of fluff up a couple of spots and get it how I want it to look and trim off the ends here. And then I'm actually just going to use a little dab of hot glue to glue it onto the pumpkin. Okay, so now I'm going to use this paper clay to create my little leaf that I want to hang onto my stem. So I'm using paper clay, and I'm actually using Orchid Design mold to shape my leaf. So this is one of their molds that they have, and I just am putting my paper clay in here and then scraping off the excess with my knife. So you could use a putty knife or any type of spatula, just something to smooth out the back to help you be able to remove the excess clay. So then I'm just going to pop out my little leaf mold here, and this paper clay, if you're not going to paint it immediately, you need to let it dry probably 24 hours. But I'm going to go ahead and poke my hole because I know I'm going to hang this around my pumpkin, so it needs a hole in it, and I'm using a toothpick to do that. And then I'm going to put it to the side and let it dry and come back and paint it. Okay, so once it's dry, I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to use this gold paint, and I just actually brushed it on with my finger, but I'm just going to put a coat of paint on it and make sure I like how that looks, and then I'm going to go ahead and thread it up with some of this, I think this is just twine actually. So I just poked it through the leaf hole that I made, and then I'm going to tie it up onto my pumpkin. I just think the leaf adds so much. I think it looks so cute. I hope you've enjoyed this DIY tutorial on making your own buffalo check pumpkin, and I'd love to hear what you think down below.